the podcast with Dan Bardell and Gregg Evans.
Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a Sunday edition of the podcast with myself, Dan Bardell, and global Gregg Evans as we look back on a fantastic day at Villa Park. Aston Villa 2, Manchester City 1. This show is, of course, as always, sponsored by NordVPN. And if you want a huge discount plus 4 months free, head to 1874.io/NordVPN. And it's completely risk-free because Nord offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not satisfied, you'll hear the usual advert that you hear in the show later on, a little bit more about NordVPN to be had there. As I say, delighted to be joined by global Gregg Evans. And Gregg, it was a brilliant day at Villa Park yesterday. I know Manchester City have been struggling, but nonetheless, it was still a very, very good, efficient performance from Aston Villa Football Club, and a great win, and probably still one of the best performances under Emery, one of the best wins under Emery. Just because Man City are on a bad run, they've still got some fantastic players.
Yeah, morning, Dan. Agree with some of it. Obviously, a great win. Think that Villa needed it after the previous week where they fell to defeat at Nottingham Forest. Still fancied Man City a little bit going into the game, despite their horrendous run of form. But having watched them now for 3 games in a row, I realised that they are a bad team. They are struggling, and for me, I know that sounds ridiculous because
it does after the last few years, doesn't it?
after everything that Manchester City have been through, but. As good as Villa were on the day, I thought that a lot of it was down to Man City being poor.
Okay, interesting. I mean, you do always offer the more balanced view than I would offer. I thought, at some point, I keep thinking, and I keep saying on everything I go on, at some point Manchester City will be back. They will win. They'll turn someone over, and it'll all just click back into gear. I think you're right. It's quite clear that's probably not on the horizon at the moment. And there were certain aspects of Manchester City's system that made it easier for Villa. And I mean, I guess we saw that in the opening minute of the game because Villa could have scored twice off their first attack. Obviously, Duran going through one goal after a great press from him and John McGinn. And then off the corner that came off the back of that Duran chance, Pau Torres couldn't come any closer to scoring from that corner, from that set piece. So Villa kind of showed their teeth, showed their game plan in that kind of first minute and a half, because I think Villa did press throughout the game at the right times. It wasn't like a heavy pressing performance from Villa, but it was almost like they were trap set and they knew when they needed to press Man City and when they were going to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, in some ways it wasn't much different to last year in terms of the game plan and the way that Villa set up. It was very clear the sort of 4-2-2-2 formation, or at least the sort of box or at times diamond midfield, was really useful. That was where Villa overloaded and really found their those marginal gains that you need to beat any team, but a team like Manchester City, even on the run of form that they're on. But I mean, with Man City, they beat Forest 3-0, didn't they? Was that a month ago or so, or 4 or 5 weeks ago? Can't quite remember when it was.
Start December.
Yeah, so that felt like the turning point for them. They'd had that real bad run of form, which you just never associated with Manchester City. They then beat Forest, and you thought, okay, they'll turn this around now, and they just haven't. The run of results have continued, and I mean, it's incredible, really, to think where they're at, because we just don't ever expect. We've never seen Pep Guardiola, in such troubling times as he is now, and the team. I mean, they were passive at times. They were slow in the second half. Very open in defence. Clearly, they miss Rodri. We know that. One of the reasons that Villa were able to exploit them last year was because Rodri wasn't in the team. But I personally think the performance last season was better. I think it was a more complete performance. Spoke to multiple players, and I spoke to multiple players this season as well, and they still say that. That's the most complete performance they've ever been involved in. A couple of the high-profile players at Villa. So whether they will think that yesterday eclipses that, I don't think so. Purely because when they beat Manchester City last year, they were still a very good side. They're not at the moment. But let's not take anything away from Unai Emery and the players who executed that game plan yesterday, because it was brilliant to watch, and that was the Villa that you that you hope to see more of, I think, going forward, because they're turning into a bit of a weird team, aren't they, Villa? They can go and do that
Very
one
much
week,
so,
and then
Greg.
the poor game management the week before. I mean, the late goals still concern me a little bit. I think in a game where Manchester City had nothing, they still gave them something. If that's 1-0, you automatically lose 2 points. So that was a little bit concerning to me. But I think overall a very, very good performance and another important 3 points.
Yeah, Emery's kind of blueprint was laid out before the game in terms of the team selection. I was a little bit surprised that we moved away from the 3 at the back. I was expecting that to continue for a while, in all honesty, because I think we'd won a few games playing that way. Emery kind of went back to the back 4, maybe his preferred back 4, and then he dropped in Onana into the midfield, who I thought didn't have a great first half, but I thought was really, really good in the second half. Amadou Onana. The key thing for me in that game was Rodgers has been at times unplayable as the central number 10, but I feel like more recently it hasn't been working for him. He's found himself kind of getting doubled up on in the middle of the pitch, which is easy to do when you're playing in the middle of the pitch and it's quite congested. And I feel like he's been giving the ball away. I think against a Champions League team like City, an elite football club, even though they're not showing it at the moment. I've been saying for weeks that Tielemans at the 10 is probably the way to go forward. And Morgan Rodgers will get all the praise for yesterday, and rightly so. But Yuri Tielemans in that number 10 position, I lost count of the amount of excellent things he did in that role. He was so good yesterday. I kept calling him the maestro on social media, and you saw it with the goal. Just his pass accuracy, the weight of pass, the passes that he sees in that number 10 position when he's a little bit higher up in the big games against teams that are going to come out against you a little bit more. I think that's crucial.
I mean, he was excellent. He was so good to watch live. Just love to see. The benefit of being at the game is that you get to pick certain players out and you can watch them. And it was great to watch him yesterday. I thought he was the best player. Rodgers was quite close, I think. But I mean, there were other really good performances as well. Onana and Kamara were excellent in the second half. Really put some important blocks and tackles and interceptions in. So the midfield in general was excellent, and McGinn had some really good moments as well.
Yeah, I'd put McGinn in the top 3 for me yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a complete performance from the midfield. But in terms of Tielemans, we knew that he'd played the most through balls, most balls into the final third, I think, as well, before the Manchester City game. But I lost count of the amount that he did yesterday. It was brilliant. Just really seems to be thriving under Emery. I remember when he came in to Villa, lots of big clubs had looked at him previously and thought that perhaps his time had passed. Arsenal and Liverpool had considered signing him when he was a Leicester player. And when his contract was, when he still had years left to run in his contract, they didn't decide to push on it because, incredibly, that they thought that he couldn't get up and down as well as he we are seeing now. But yeah, in the right system, he's such a influential player. And when you listen to him speak after the games, he seems like a really sort of humble, down-to-earth guy as well. So, fair play to him. Excellent player, and excellent for Villa to have someone of his ball-playing qualities.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you to move a little bit closer to your microphone, Greg.
I'm a bit quiet.
I'm wary that you're a little bit far away, and I'm wary that I'm usually quite loud and that people will hear my horrible loud voice and then hear your voice very, very quietly. So, where's he gone? If you could go a bit closer to your mic, that'd be great. That'd be great, Greg. Thank you very much. I felt reassured before the game because I felt, Onana and Kamara, it's like if you get through Villa's initial press, that's not a nice midfield duo to be up against as an opposing team, because they both can carry the ball, both can win the ball. And actually, Onana's a decent passer and Kamara's a very good passer. So I quite liked that setup and freeing up Tielemans. And the goal was an example of Villa playing out from the back, and then suddenly it's quite slow. It doesn't look like Villa are going to go anywhere. And then suddenly they just turn it on and Morgan Rodgers breaks away and unselfishly squares it to John Duran, who just, simply every time he's on the pitch, it feels like he's gonna score. Yesterday was the first time, I think when he started previously, I've always looked at it as a bit of rotation there. He's giving Duran a game. Watkins is having kind of the day off, and I've always looked at it a little bit like that. Yesterday was the first time where I felt he's the number one striker at the moment. He's being picked on merit, and Watkins has got some work to do to get back into that team. And like I said, the thing with Duran is he misses that chance in the first minute. It literally doesn't bother him one bit because it's almost like he just backs himself to score and knows he's going to score with that mentality. And not long after, he did score, and it was a nice goal from Villa, and it's actually a good finish from Duran as well. Although it might look quite easy, it was actually a good finish. Yeah,
over,
it did.
didn't he? Yeah, and I think that was purposeful as well. He meant to do that. Gets into the right positions. I thought he worked harder for the team. I think he has been working harder, as I mentioned in the podcast last week. Hearing more positive signs about the way he's willing to stay a little bit longer in training and work on certain aspects of his game, but more so certain things that the team need from him. So, he's becoming a bit of more all-round player now, whereas before we knew he was a massive threat, a massive goal threat. It felt to me like he was a bit of a selfish player, just wanted to get the goals and wasn't too concerned or wasn't as concerned about the overall result. It feels like he's buying into everything a little bit more now. And that perhaps that's coming with a bit more maturity. He's getting a little bit older. He was a very, very young man when he arrived at Villa.
21 now. He's a fully blown man in my eyes.
Yeah, it's still so young, isn't it? But look, he's maturing. He's taking on instruction. He's becoming a bit more rounded, as I say. And the great thing for Villa is that he's not losing that goal threat. He scored in every goal. He scored in every game he started. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's absolutely amazing. What a record! He's the man for me now. Me and you, we say this every week. We're really supportive of Ollie Watkins. We like him, but unfortunately for Ollie Watkins at the moment, John Duran is the better option right now, I think.
Yeah, and Danny Hoxton said it here. Rodgers and Duran look more right than Rodgers and Watkins. I can't put my finger on why. It did feel like there was a relationship there, like they kind of knew where each other were going to be, and it's clear from the celebrations as well that they really get on.
I think so. Yeah, I wouldn't say that Rodgers and Watkins don't know how to play together.
No, normally.
Or Tielemans either, but because look at the success that the pair of them, the three of them have had at Villa, and let's not forget how good of a player Ollie Watkins is and how many goals he scored for Villa. But right now, that on-field relationship just looked a little bit better yesterday. Not so much the game before, but yesterday it did.
Emery will be not loath to do it. That's not the right word, because he's going to pick the striker that's on form that he thinks is best for the team. And I think now at the moment we can say he does think that's John Duran at the moment. But Watkins has done so much for the team, so much for Villa, and so much for Unai Emery. I imagine it's a kind of a horrible situation for him to be in almost.
I mean, yeah,
it's harder to leave. I think it's harder for Emery to leave Watkins out than it is for him to leave Duran out.
It's difficult, but this is top level football. This is Villa have gone through a period where they were losing not winning a lot of games, and you look at it and you were starting to think Villa on the slide here, so you've got to make the right decisions, and at this moment in time playing John Duran is working for Villa. So yeah, it's not easy. The relationship with Watkins and Emery is good. They've done so much for each other.
Yeah.
But that is just football, unfortunately. And we're not in the position where we say times move on and Ollie Watkins is done at Villa and John Duran's going to be the number one striker for the rest of the season, etc. But at the moment, he's got the shirt, so it's down to Watkins to. And look, Duran has had to bide his time a little bit. He's had to be that guy on the bench that's had to sit there, and you can't ever describe John Duran as patient because he's not, but he's had to sit there watching and try to be patient. So Watkins will be hurting right now, I think, because if you've scored that many goals over a certain amount of seasons, you would feel like you deserve to be playing. And he's not at the moment.
Yeah, and it was a good first.
Sorry, just one more, Dan. There's not many situations like it in the Premier League where you've got two really top class strikers like this. You don't see it very often. If you look through the teams, there aren't many options. There aren't many other examples like that, because you have your striker and your striker plays if he's fit. Your main striker, and it's
Isak and Wilson's the closest I can think of in the Premier League, but Wilson's always injured.
Wilson's injured. I really like Wilson, and when Aston Villa were trying to sign Callum Wilson and Ollie Watkins, and the plan was to sign both of them. But if you remember, before Ollie Watkins came to Aston Villa, Villa had bid for Callum Wilson.
Yeah, I
They missed
remember.
out on that, and he went to Newcastle because he thought that would be a better move for him. But I remember at the time thinking, if Villa could have got Wilson, then I thought he was the better striker at that point. I just think his injuries have caused him a few issues. So I still don't think that the dynamic's the same. Wilson and Isak both very good strikers, but Watkins and Duran are both fit and ready.
Yeah, I mean, in that first half, I thought Villa played the game well. They managed the game really well in the first half, tried to slow it down when they could. Obviously, they had that lead, so they had something to protect, and then they kind of clicked into the gears when they needed to as well, without creating a lot of chances after that busy opening period. We'll come on to Jack Grealish after we've kind of gone through the game. But in the first half, I've got to say, he was the only City player that looked like he was going to do anything. It felt like a bit of a throwback to Villa in the Championship, because I was watching Man City and thinking, their plan here is just give Grealish the ball and see what happens. It was a little bit of a throwback to the Championship days at Villa Park, watching Jack Grealish in a City shirt, because it just seemed that was all they had in their locker. And he gave Cash a few issues in that first half. He obviously held his width very, very wide. Grealish, Villa wanted to defend narrow yesterday and defended very, very narrow, so there was space for the switch to give the ball to Grealish. It was on a lot in the first half. He made a good chance for Gvardiol, who probably should have done better if you look back at that one. But really, we kept City at arm's length. It was actually only the out ball to Grealish that seemed to be causing Villa any sort of problems, and I didn't think that was causing us loads of problems.
And I just think that was because of the way that Villa set up. Grealish got so much of the ball and so much freedom, because Villa basically said to Man City, "We're going to play narrow. We're going to play very narrow. We can play very compact. We're going to give you the space on the wings." And that used to be a game plan from teams who tried to keep Manchester City at bay in years gone by when they were excellent. That was always the game plan from teams who were lower down, because the margins of trying to get the better of Manchester City when they were brilliant was. I remember speaking to multiple people about this, and they said, well, the only real way you can try and get the better of them is by allowing them to have the freedom down the wings and block off the central areas. Now, it was a little bit different yesterday, and you look back at it in hindsight and you think, if you've had a couple of nippy wingers like perhaps Doku, or haven't seen enough of Savinho, I know he came on, but haven't seen enough of him to know whether he's good enough yet. But if they had the freedom, perhaps they might have done a little bit more. But I thought Grealish was very good in the first half an hour. He got on the ball, caused Cash problems, put in that decent cross for Gvardiol, as you say. But then faded out of the game, didn't he? In the second half, he was quiet.
Yeah,
and you could see the frustration. The frustration was kicking in there. It was he's a winner. He wants to, as much as he respects Villa and enjoyed his time at the club and obviously followed the club as a youngster. He wants to win for the football team he's playing for, and it just got more and more frustrating for him. I think he fouled, was it McGinn or Rodgers late on, and he just looked like he was frustrated.
Yeah, half time.
Picked up a booking, didn't he? Picked up a booking, I think. I think he fouled. Was it Rodgers or
later on in the game? Yeah,
in the second half. Yeah.
In all honesty, he should have been booked at half time. So I'm not sure why Martinez got booked and he didn't. I didn't really understand that at half time. It was clear, the frustration for Grealish was boiling over a little bit at half time. I thought there was a chance he might get taken off, actually, because he was getting straight at various points in the game when they were making subs, but it never happened, and he obviously played the 90, so Pep didn't put him through, having to go off the pitch. And the Villa fans were quite vocal against him. I suppose we may as well talk about it now as we've got there. I think some of it is pantomime, which I don't massively have a problem with. Fans are trying to put off a player that's playing for the opposition team, and to an extent, I think that worked yesterday. Although I would actually go as far as to say he was City's best player on the day, but I don't think anyone else really turned up for City, in all honesty, or took any form of responsibility in the game other than him. Look, in the block I sit, wasn't much booing of him or chance against him. I think people look back and can appreciate what he did and what part he's played in Aston Villa's past to enable us to get to where we are today. So I think a lot of people are very, very reluctant to boo him and don't understand why fans are abusive towards him and why they do boo him. I would never boo him. That's just my opinion. I've got too much respect for him and his family, and I can understand why he left. At the time, Villa were not the beast that they are today, so I can understand why he wanted to leave. I'm a Villa fan, and I would always say, look, if I'm a footballer, I love Villa so much. I've had a season ticket my whole life. If I played for Villa, that would be the ultimate for me, and I would never leave. But I'm not a professional athlete. I don't have a professional athlete's mentality. So I think people look at the fact that he left and that he was such a big Villa fan, and just look at that and are hurt by it and think, well, he can't have loved Villa. He never loved Villa. That quite simply is not the case at all. Him and his family love Villa to bits. I know that for absolute fact. So I find the abuse of him pretty hard to take. I don't like it. People will completely disagree with me. I'm sure you probably feel somewhere near the same as I do about it. I think he did so much for the club. Villa had to sell him. If Villa hadn't sold him, the financial difficulty that they would have encountered in the years after that we'd have got point deductions. I'm almost certain of that. That 100 million sale carried Villa in PSR and enabled them to build and shape a squad. And it's taken Unai Emery to come in and take that squad to the level we want to be and get Villa into the Champions League. If Jack Grealish is playing for Villa now and Man City came in from and Villa are a Champions League team, he stays at Villa. He wanted to play Champions League. He wanted to win trophies. At that point, Villa were nowhere near the level of doing that. It just wasn't going to happen. So he left. Villa got 100 million. I want to say it saved the club. That's probably a little bit dramatic, but it certainly helped Villa
played a part
moving forward.
It certainly played a part. And I'd say a couple of things for the people that give him stick. There was a £100 million release clause inserted into his contracts. Now, when Manchester City were interested in signing him and tried to sign him on multiple occasions in the lead up to the actual date where he went, Man City were testing the water with Villa with lots of lower offers, right? Not once did Grealish ever say to those in charge of Villa, come on, reduce it, let me go for a certain fee. It's Manchester City, let me go for a certain fee. He knew that £100 million was put into his contract, and he knew that would sort Villa out massively, in the future when he went. So never once did he ask for the price to be reduced. Now, some supporters will look at it and think that if you support the football club and then you leave, you're almost betraying the club. Now, for us, right? For us and for football supporters, it's completely different to being a player. Let's look at the financial aspect of it. How many people on the whole end, now this might be a bit controversial, but how many people on the whole end would, if you offered them a certain amount of money, I don't know the figure, let's say a certain amount of money, 250 grand, 200 grand or whatever, £500,000, pluck a figure out. You say to them, we'll give you that amount of money, you never go to the Villa again. How many of them do you think would take that down?
It's a tough one, that is, Greg.
How many? What do you think? What percentage? What percentage of the whole end? If you said, right, there's 500 grand, you can't go to the Villa again. Would you say any of them? Would you say not one person on that whole end would take it?
I think it'd probably be 50-50.
Exactly. There's going to be a big percentage of people going. So that's the financial aspect of it. Jack Grealish moving to Manchester City was always going to earn more money than staying at Aston Villa, even though Villa offered to match his wages.
I don't think it was about money, was it?
But it wasn't about money. That's just the first thing I'm bringing up. The second thing was about going and winning trophies and being remembered as one of the best players to play in the Premier League. When he left Aston Villa, he could have gone anywhere in the world. He was brilliant. He was the best player in the Premier League the year before, if you remember, when he linked up so well with Ross Barkley and Ollie Watkins. And that season was fantastic for Villa in some ways, because so many managers said to Dean Smith, the team that you've built at the moment is amazing. It should be doing better than it is. And Grealish was a big part of that. He wanted to go to Man City and show what he was worth. How many of those other Villa players could have gone to Man City or any other club in the world at that point? Emi Martinez, maybe, but there wasn't any others, was there? So you've also got to remember that. Grealish wanted to go. He wanted to win trophies. It's going to upset some Villa fans, but booing him during the game, again, I've got two thoughts on it. If you're a Villa supporter, you want to do everything possible to help your team win the game. So if that means booing an opposition player, so be it to an extent. But before the game and after the game, you should show him give him the credit and the praise that he deserves for dragging the club through the Championship single-handedly at some points. You know, when he came back from that injury and Villa went on the 10-game winning run. Without Jack Grealish, Villa wouldn't have been promoted. Without Jack Grealish, Villa wouldn't have stayed in the Premier League the next season. Without Jack Grealish, there would have been massive PSR issues because the £100 million that he left when he went helped rebuild the team and set this platform up almost for the Champions League in some ways. So look, you know, the people within Villa, the staff members that are still there, the former players, the players that he played with, the manager that he used to play with, they all speak so positively of him. So, you know, there's no coincidence there that he was a good guy. He was great for Villa. And he just wanted to move on to bigger and better things, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do think some of it is genuinely banter, but I do think some of it goes too far and people can't separate certain things or think outside of certain boxes. That's just my opinion. I might be wrong. That is just my opinion. I think, you know, he's still a Villa fan. His family is still all Villa fans, and it would have hurt them all yesterday. I'm sure it's the first time he's played more than like 4 minutes at Villa Park since he's made the move. So I'm sure yesterday was probably a weird and difficult day for him.
I think probably
as well.
Probably every moment has, because, you know, if you remember when Grealish played for Villa, he was often booed by away supporters.
Yeah, he's used to that.
But, like, you know, the amount of booing that there was yesterday, he probably got booed more by Villa fans yesterday than he did at St Andrews.
I mean, I don't want to single out people like Simon. Yeah, what you've just said is completely true. I think Simon White said today, I think I would argue Delph showed more loyalty. This is probably the biggest problem I have with the booing, actually, is that people come back who did less for Villa, who left in similar ways and are treated like absolute heroes, but didn't do anywhere near as much for the club and didn't dedicate as much of their life to the club as Jack Grealish. That's probably my biggest problem with it, actually. Yeah. Milner, for example. Milner has been a great player in the Premier League, a great footballer. He agitated for a move. He wanted to go to Manchester City, but when he comes back, he gets clapped and treated like a hero. He probably gave us like 2.5 seasons or something, or 3 seasons overall in his Villa career. Jack's with the club since he was 6, and like I say, all the factors that I mentioned earlier about the 100 million and Villa needing that 100 million. That's my biggest problem with it, is that players who've done far less get treated like gods and heroes, and Jack gets abused. That's the bit of it I really don't like.
I know Ashley Young was booed when he moved to Manchester United at times, but he left for nothing. Ran his contract down, left for nothing. Jack left the club for £100 million.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably do a whole show on
but
this.
Look, you know, the day is not about
Manchester
Jack Grealish, and it's not about Aston. It's not about him returning to Villa. Look, he's moved on. He's won his 3 titles. He mentioned that in his finger gesture, didn't he, yesterday? Which I presume was on the back of, you know, a lot of frustration. Abuse. A, with the result. B, with the abuse. Yeah, you know, if you're constantly getting abuse, and there would be loads of comments that he would have heard from the stands, then at some point you're going to react, I think, and that's what happened. But look, we'll move on. Excuse me. We'll move on from Grealish because it's more important to talk about Villa and the performance.
Yeah, Jonathan Cracker says here, my city, my club, my home. I can tell you for absolute fact that was sheer stupidity from the club, not Jack Grealish. That advertising campaign for the new kit was absolutely ridiculous from the club. But yeah, it's probably a story for another day. Right, second half, Gregg. Villa really good in the second half. I thought we were brilliant. In fact, played some really nice football, opened City up at the right times. They couldn't really live with us. Pep tried to change things up, make substitutions, but quite simply, actually, in that second half, just couldn't deal with Morgan Rodgers running at them. You know, we've just been talking about Grealish, probably one of my favourite players I've ever watched for Villa, running with a football at Villa Park. Rodgers yesterday in that second half. It's just the rugby element too, and the physicality. Like, people are trying to haul him down, they're trying to knock him over, and they can't do it. And that second goal, it's just liquid football. It's such a good goal again. I thought both Villa's goals yesterday were really good, actually, but Rodgers involved in both, picks up a goal and an assist, and absolutely fantastic.
And look, good. It was a lovely driving run, wasn't it, from Rodgers for the second goal, but an excellent finish as well. And caught up with some of the interviews this morning, and he said to the TV that the TV reporters that he was more pleased with the finish because, and I understand why, because there are lots of moments in games where he goes running through opponents, aren't there? And then there isn't, the end product sometimes isn't there. So to then finish it off was exceptional and a really good goal. And there were so many occasions like it. I think they really struggled to deal with it. And yeah, I mean, you know, I think deep down he would have, I really like Rodgers actually. He's a very sort of calm, unassuming type, but he would have felt like he had a point to prove against Man City because he never made a first team appearance for them. You know, he got a big move there and was then moved on. But I mean, what Emery's done with him is amazing. You know, he noticed something in him and has unlocked it all. I think he's really fun to watch, isn't he? And he could be very good for the country as well in the future because he's got that recognition now.
There's not many players like him.
You know, he runs. He's like Bellingham in some ways because he can run at players with pace, purpose, but he's got strength as well. And people just, you know, opponents bounce off him. So there aren't too many like him. Yeah, very, very good player.
Yeah, it was a lovely goal. Got great work from McGinn as well. I thought McGinn was excellent in the second half. I always think if John McGinn has a good game, you've got a good chance of winning there. And, you know, it showed it again. Yes, a real leader's performance in the midfield from him. I think selecting Rodgers in that left channel, I've already mentioned Tielemans being in the 10, how well that worked. For that game, Rodgers in the left channel and maybe moving forward, I just think I don't know how to explain it. I feel like he gives him more space to run into coming from the left. I just feel like it suits him better. He's had good moments in the central number 10 position, but playing as that left 10 with kind of Luca Dean going round him as well. Even if Luca Dean doesn't get the ball, he makes some good off the ball movements that frees up space. And, you know, you've got clever midfield player in Tielemans who knows when to drop in, when to come forward and do all the things that the central 10 does. Just work brilliant. But I do think that position suits Rodgers more.
It does, doesn't it? You can see.
You haven't got Ramsey as well,
and obviously when Ramsey's back, you know, it's a slightly different dynamic. But yeah, he was good yesterday. He was very, very good. And we've seen moments from him this season, but yesterday was a complete performance from him.
Yeah, I like this one from Danny Hoxton. Tielemans in a 10 and Rodgers in a 10 equals silk, glove and sledgehammer. Both effective and devastating. Real potential for something special when it all clicks. Unbelievable analogy. Come and take my space in doing the show, Danny Hoxton, because you're coming up with better analogies that I'm coming up with here. Watkins did get on, didn't he? Had a chance. I thought very unlikely to score from that angle. Did the best with that chance that he could when it came. Obviously, space was starting to open up at that point as Man City were coming forward. You've touched on the only disappointment to concede a goal. I mean, you can guarantee if someone hasn't scored a goal all season, that goal might come against Villa, and it did for Phil Foden. And then I did start to get a little bit nervous after last week because we did give away a free kick in a dangerous position. And I must admit, I did sit there, whereas usually I'm really confident about us seeing out games. Recently, I haven't been as confident, but luckily, Emi Martinez came and gathered the set piece, and I needn't worry any more. But I still think, why do you have to make life so hard? Just win 2-0, just win the game 2-0, Villa. Why do you have to concede?
It felt like a little bit of a concern to me because it was a game where Villa should have just seen it out so comfortably. Man City was so poor; they did nothing, and then
rubbish
just
goal
a mistake,
as well.
really, wasn't it? And that allowed them in. But as I say, if it's 1-0 and you allow that to happen, it's automatically 2 points dropped, isn't it? So Emi Martinez was furious, wasn't there? You could see he spoke in the week about the issue of not keeping too many clean sheets this season. I think he said that he'd been crap. Those were his words. He goes, "I've been crap this season." I think, but
yeah, he did said that.
I don't think he has been crap. I think it's a combination. There have been a couple of mistakes that he's made, but he's made some unbelievable saves to keep goals out. So I think he's been a little bit hard on himself there. But yeah, he was furious because clean sheets mean a lot to him, and it was another one that Villa let go. And yeah, they just for whatever happens in the Premier League, Villa just are struggling. They've just conceded way too many goals. But the bigger picture again, picture, look at it, look where Villa are now. What we've got to remember, fifth or sixth? Fifth. Fifth. Fifth in the table, above Manchester City, not far behind third place now. It's looking a little bit brighter. And what we've got to remember is Villa have gone through a really tough period in the season. Yes, they've got fewer points, a fair amount fewer than this time last season, which is a bit of a concern. But Emery has shown that when the times have been hard, he's got the qualities to get a team through it.
Yeah, excellent. Yep. Right, I think that does us, Greg. I need to go. I've got a breakfast date with Dave Reed. But before we do go, I'll let NordVPN play us out with the advert there. But Greg, thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I do enjoy the fact that you just give that more balanced opinion than me, who can be quite biased because I am obviously a Villa fan. So we will let NordVPN play us out. Do all the things that I bang on about every single week, please. And I guess all that's left to say from Greg and I is you'll see me again because I'll be doing a preview show for Boxing Day. But Greg, would you like to wish the listeners
Merry
and the
Christmas to everyone. Thanks for all the lovely comments. Thanks for all the feedback, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, Greg, very, very professional. There could be a future for you in the game. Yeah, so I'm going to let Nord play us out. But yeah, there'll be a match preview on Christmas Eve, I'm going to imagine. So watch out for that ahead of the Newcastle away trip. Thank you to 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN. So when and you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support 4 months for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also